Abandoned at the altar, her billionaire boss murmurs, "Let me be the groom." Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. She stands at the front of the church, hands clasped so tightly her fingers ache. The aisle stretches behind her like a long, silent question. Rows of guests sit frozen in place, their faces tilted forward, eyes darting between the empty doorway and the woman in white who has been waiting far too long. The organ music has stopped. Even the air feels held, as if the room itself is afraid to breathe. Her phone vibrates once in her palm. She does not want to look. She already knows what it will say. Still, she lowers her eyes. One message. One line. No explanation. No apology that could ever be enough. "I cannot do this. I am sorry." That is all. The words blur as her vision fills. Heat rushes to her face. A whisper moves through the pews, spreading faster than she can stop it. Someone coughs. Someone else shifts in their seat. Her mother turns halfway, confusion tightening into dread. The officiant clears his throat and glances at the open doors again, as if the groom might suddenly appear if given one more second. But the doors remain closed. She swallows hard, lifting her chin. She tells herself not to cry. Not here. Not in front of everyone she knows. She has already lost enough today. She has already given up the apartment deposit, the catering bill, the flowers, the dress that took months of saving. She has already invited the cameras that her former fiancé insisted would be good for business. This was supposed to be her beginning, not a public ending. The officiant leans closer and speaks softly, but his words echo anyway. He asks if they should pause the ceremony. He asks if she would like a moment. Every eye is on her now, waiting, judging, pitying. She opens her mouth, but no sound comes out. Then she feels it, a presence behind her. Close enough that she can sense the warmth through the thin fabric of her gown. A familiar stillness. A calm that does not belong in this chaos. A voice lowers beside her ear, quiet enough that only she can hear it. "Pretend I am the groom." Her breath catches. She turns her head just enough to see him from the corner of her eye. He is standing straight, composed, dressed in a dark suit that looks like it was tailored to him alone. His expression is unreadable, but his gaze is steady, certain. This is the man she recognizes from the corner office, from boardrooms and late meetings, from headlines she pretends not to read. Her boss, a billionaire, the last person she ever expected to be here. Her mind races. This is impossible. This is inappropriate. This is insane. And yet, as another murmur ripples through the guests, and the weight of humiliation presses down on her chest, she realizes something terrifying. He is offering her an escape. Not love, not comfort, just a way out. The officiant looks between them, confused. The room leans forward. The moment stretches, thin as glass, ready to shatter. And in that suspended second, with her world collapsing and every exit sealed, she has to decide whether to stand alone in silence or take the hand being offered behind her back. She does not take his hand right away. The silence stretches, heavy and uncomfortable. Every second feels louder than the last. She can feel her heart pounding against her ribs, sharp and insistent, like it is demanding an answer she is not ready to give. If she walks away now, this wedding ends in disaster. Not quietly, not privately. It will end in front of everyone who ever mattered to her. Her parents, her co-workers, her former fiancé's business partners, the local reporters who were invited because this wedding was supposed to look impressive, successful, perfect. She had not wanted the cameras. He had insisted, said it would be good exposure, said it would help their future, said people trusted couples who looked stable. Now, that same spotlight feels like a blade. She imagines turning around, lifting the front of her dress, and running down the aisle alone. She imagines the headlines by morning. Left at the altar. Wedding called off in front of hundreds. A woman who could not even keep her own fiancé. In this city, perception matters. Reputation lasts longer than truth. She thinks of the deposits she paid, the checks she wrote with shaking hands, the small savings account she emptied because she believed this day was worth it. the caterer, the florist, the venue that required full payment no matter what happened. She thinks of the apartment she gave up, the lease she did not renew because they were supposed to move in together next week. She thinks of the quiet conversation with her mother, who hugged her tightly last night and whispered that everything would be all right now. If she walks away, nothing will be all right. She inhales slowly, forcing herself to stay upright. She does not want to collapse. She does not want to beg. She refuses to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her break. And then there is him, her boss. The man standing behind her does not touch her. He does not rush her. He does not raise his voice or try to convince her. He simply waits, as if he already understands the weight of the decision pressing down on her shoulders. She knows who he is. Everyone does. His name alone moves markets. His company employs tens of thousands. He is known for control, precision, and distance. He does not act on impulse. He does not offer help without a reason. That is what makes this terrifying. She lowers her voice, barely moving her lips. "Why are you doing this?" His answer comes just as quietly. "Because you cannot stand there alone, and because I need you to stand here with me." Her pulse stutters. Need her? This is not charity. She knows that instantly. Men like him do not rescue people for free. There is always a calculation, even when it is hidden behind calm eyes and a steady voice. She feels the room waiting. The officiant clears his throat again. Someone in the front row shifts, impatience creeping in. If she refuses, the humiliation is immediate and irreversible. If she accepts, she steps into something she does not understand. Her mind races through the consequences, but there is no time left to analyze them properly. There is only survival. Only the choice between being abandoned in public or protected by a man whose world she has never truly entered. Slowly, carefully, she reaches back. Her fingers brush his hand. The contact is brief, controlled, but solid enough to steady her. A signal, a promise, or perhaps a warning. She turns to face him. Gasps ripple through the church. The billionaire steps forward, calm and composed, and places himself beside her as if this had always been the plan, as if this moment had been waiting for him all along. And as the officiant stares in shock and the guests erupt into whispers, she realizes something with chilling clarity. Whatever she has just agreed to will not end when the ceremony does. This is only the beginning. The officiant hesitates, eyes moving from her face to the man now standing at her side. The church is no longer quiet. Whispers ripple through the pews like a sudden wind, sharp and relentless. "I am sorry," the officiant says carefully. "Sir, may I ask who you are?" The man does not raise his voice. He does not look unsettled. He simply answers clear and steady. "I am the groom." The words land heavy, final. A murmur swells into open shock. Heads turn. Phones lift despite the rules posted at the entrance. Her mother's hand flies to her mouth. Somewhere in the back, someone laughs nervously, unsure whether this is a joke or a disaster unfolding in real time. Her heart slams against her chest. She feels the urge to pull away, to explain, to say something that will slow this down. But he remains still beside her, his presence firm, almost anchoring. He does not squeeze her hand. He does not perform affection. He simply stands with her, as if daring the room to challenge him. The officiant clears his throat again. "Do you wish to proceed?" There it is, the point of no return. She swallows, forcing her voice to work. "Yes." One word, soft but unmistakable. The ceremony resumes, though nothing feels normal anymore. The vows blur past her ears. She hears fragments, pieces of language meant for love and permanence, but her mind is racing too fast to hold on to them. Her thoughts are fixed on one thing. What did I just agree to? When the officiant finally pronounces them married, the reaction is not applause at first. It is confusion, then disbelief, then a scattered, uncertain clapping that grows louder as people follow one another, unsure but unwilling to be the only ones not reacting. The kiss is brief, polite, almost ceremonial in its restraint, and just like that, it is done. Moments later, he guides her away from the crowd, not roughly, not urgently, but with purpose. They step into a quiet side room near the chapel, the noise of the reception fading behind the heavy door. She turns to face him the second it closes. "Explain," she says, her voice low but firm. "Now." He meets her gaze without flinching. "This is not what it looks like," he says, and it is exactly what it looks like. Her jaw tightens. That is not an explanation. He nods slightly, as if he expected nothing less. "You were about to be humiliated in front of everyone who matters to you. That would follow you for years. I stopped that." "And what do you get?" she asks. "People like you never do anything for free." A faint pause, not hesitation, calculation. "I need a wife," he says. The bluntness steals her breath. "Legally, publicly, for a limited time." She stares at him, stunned. "You could have hired anyone." "I needed someone already standing at the altar," he replies. "Someone credible, someone people would believe." She lets out a bitter laugh. "Believe what?" "That this was not planned," he says. "That it was real enough to silence questions." The pieces begin to fall into place, slow and unsettling. "There is a merger," he continues, "a very public one. My personal life has become part of the negotiation. Certain people expect stability, a family image, a wife." She crosses her arms, grounding herself. "So I am a solution." "You are a partner," he corrects, "if you agree." Silence stretches between them again. "And if I do not?" she asks. He does not threaten. He does not push. "Then I will ensure today ends quietly. I will cover the costs. I will make sure your reputation is protected as much as possible. But the damage will still exist." She looks away, her gaze landing on her reflection in a framed mirror. A bride who married a stranger to avoid disgrace. "What are the terms?" she asks finally. "No romantic expectations," he says immediately. "No interference in your personal life beyond public appearances. A clear end date. Full financial protection for you." She turns back to him. "And after?" "After," he says, "we walk away." She studies his face, searching for arrogance, cruelty, triumph. She finds none, only control, and something else she cannot yet name. This is not love. This is a contract. And with no better option left, she realizes she may have already signed it the moment she said yes at the altar. The reception continues without them. Music swells on the other side of the door, cheerful and misplaced, as if nothing unusual has happened. Glasses clink, laughter rises and falls. To the guests, it looks like a dramatic twist. To her, it feels like stepping into a room where the air has completely changed. He gestures toward a small table near the window. A folder rests there, thin but deliberate, as if it had been prepared long before she needed it. She notices that immediately. "You planned this," she says. "I prepared for the possibility," he replies calmly. "I did not plan for your fiancé to disappear. I planned for contingencies." She exhales slowly. Of course he did. Men like him do not improvise. They anticipate. He opens the folder and slides it toward her. Inside are clean pages, crisp and precise. No excessive language, no unnecessary drama, just structure. "This is a marriage agreement," he says. "Not a romance, not a trap." She scans the first page, her eyes moving faster than she expects. She has read contracts before, employment agreements, non-disclosure clauses. This is different, but not unfamiliar. Her voice is steady. "Walk me through it." He nods, as if he respects the request. "First," he says, "this marriage exists for public and legal purposes only. There will be no expectation of emotional or physical intimacy." She looks up at him briefly, then back down. "Good. Second," he continues, "your personal life remains your own. I will not interfere, and you will not interfere in mine, outside of agreed appearances." "Appearances," she repeats. "Galas, corporate events, family obligations, situations where my marital status matters." She flips the page. "And the duration?" 12 months, he says, with an option to end earlier if the external pressure is resolved. Her fingers tighten on the paper. A year. Long enough for rumors to settle. Long enough for the world to accept a new narrative. "And compensation?" she asks. He does not hesitate. "All wedding expenses, full coverage of your living arrangements, legal representation of your choosing, and a monthly stipend sufficient to ensure your independence." She pauses. "I do not want to be dependent on you." "That is why it is structured this way," he replies. You will not need to ask. She reads further. Confidentiality, mutual protection clauses, a clear exit agreement. This is, she stops herself. This is thorough. I do not do things halfway, he says. Silence settles between them again, but it is different now, less chaotic, more deliberate. She looks at the final page. A signature line waits at the bottom, her name printed neatly beneath it. She feels the weight of it then, not the paper, the choice. If she signs, she trades one humiliation for another kind of risk, a controlled one, a private one. If she refuses, she walks back into a room full of people who have already decided what this day means. Once I sign this, she says, there is no pretending later that I did not know what I was agreeing to. Correct, he says. That is the point. She studies his face again, still calm, still composed. But there is something else now, not softness, not warmth, accountability. You will not embarrass me, she says quietly. He meets her eyes. I will not. You will not use me as leverage without warning. I will not. And when this ends, she adds, you let me go cleanly. Yes, he says, publicly and privately. She takes the pen from the table. It feels heavier than it should. Outside, someone knocks gently, reminding them that a bride and groom are expected. She signs. The ink dries quickly. He signs beneath her name. When he closes the folder, the sound feels final. He extends his arm, not possessive, not intimate, just formal. We should return. She hesitates for only a moment before taking it. As they step back into the noise and light, she understands the truth with startling clarity. This marriage did not begin with love. It began with rules. And rules, she knows, can be far more dangerous to break than hearts. The first week passes like a carefully staged performance. To the outside world, they are newlyweds recovering from a dramatic but romantic wedding day. Smiles appear on cue. Hands touch only when required. Cameras capture angles that suggest intimacy without ever proving it. Behind closed doors, everything is quiet. The house he brings her to is not a mansion filled with excess. It is controlled, minimalist, overlooking the city from a distance that feels intentional. Clean lines, neutral colors, nothing personal left in plain sight. This will be your room, he says, opening a door at the end of a long hallway. She pauses. Your room is... on the other side of the house, he replies without hesitation. Good, she thinks. One less boundary to negotiate. They fall into a rhythm quickly, guided by the rules they signed. Breakfast at different times, separate schedules, short conversations focused on logistics, never emotions. She returns to work after a few days, walking into the office with a new last name and dozens of curious glances. Whispers follow her through the halls. Some people look impressed. Others look skeptical. A few look envious. No one asks questions out loud. At public events, he stands beside her with effortless authority. He introduces her simply, confidently. My wife. No embellishment, no explanation. The word alone reshapes how people treat her. She notices the difference immediately. Doors open faster. Conversations soften. Interruptions stop when she speaks. The world listens in a way it never did before. At first, it makes her uncomfortable. She did not earn this. She did not ask for it. It was given to her through a contract and a signature she barely remembers writing, but she cannot deny its power. One evening, after a charity gala where she navigates small talk and forced smiles for hours, they sit in the car in silence as the city lights blur past the windows. You handled yourself well tonight, he says finally. She looks at him, surprised. That sounded like praise. It was, he replies. She hesitates. You did not have to say that. I know. The silence returns, but it feels different now, less empty. At home, she changes into comfortable clothes and wanders into the kitchen, expecting to be alone. He is there, sleeves rolled up, reading something on a tablet. You cook? She asks before she can stop herself. He glances up. I feed myself. She almost smiles. They eat at opposite ends of the counter. The conversation stays safe, neutral. The weather, the schedule for the next event, a meeting he will be late for tomorrow. And yet, she notices things. He never checks his phone when she speaks. He listens fully, even when the topic is insignificant. He remembers details she mentions once and never repeats. She catches herself adjusting her pace to match his when they walk, catching herself watching the way his expression changes when he thinks no one is looking. This is dangerous territory, she reminds herself. The agreement is clear. Feelings are not part of it. But rules, she is learning, do not stop awareness. One afternoon, a situation arises at a public luncheon. A donor speaks over her repeatedly, dismissive and sharp. Before she can decide whether to push back or stay quiet, her husband steps in calmly. "She was speaking," he says, not raising his voice. The table falls silent. The donor apologizes. Later, in private, she confronts him. "You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did," he replies. "That is part of the role." "No," she says slowly. "That was personal." He studies her for a moment, then looks away. "Perhaps." That night, alone in her room, she stares at the ceiling, unsettled. This arrangement was supposed to be simple, clear, controlled. But somewhere between shared glances and unspoken support, something has shifted. She realizes it quietly, without drama. The hardest part of pretending to be married is not convincing the world. It is convincing herself that none of this means anything at all. The shift happens quietly. There is no single moment she can point to, no dramatic spark or confession. It begins instead in the in-between spaces, the pauses neither of them planned for. Late one night, she wakes from a restless sleep and cannot settle again. The house is dark and still, the city outside reduced to distant lights. She pads down the hallway in socks, drawn by the faint glow coming from the living room. He is there, not working, not on a call, just sitting on the edge of the couch, jacket discarded, tie loosened, staring at nothing in particular. He looks up when he hears her. "Sorry," she says instinctively. "I did not mean to interrupt." "You did not," he replies. "I could not sleep." She hesitates, then sits at the opposite end of the couch, careful to keep distance. Silence stretches, but it does not feel awkward. It feels shared. After a moment, she speaks. "Does it ever stop?" He turns his head slightly. "What?" "The pressure," she says. "The expectation to always be in control." He considers this, longer than she expects. "No," he says finally. "You just learn how to carry it quietly." Something in his tone cracks just enough to let the truth through. She studies him then, really looks. Not the billionaire, not her husband on paper, just a man who has built a life so rigid that there is no room left to rest inside it. "My fiancé," she says suddenly, surprising herself. "He always said I was too much, too emotional, too complicated." He does not interrupt. "He said stability mattered more than honesty," she continues. "That love was something you managed, not something you felt." Her voice tightens. "I believed him, until the day he left me standing there." She expects advice, or distance, or polite silence. Instead, he says, "That sounds like someone who was afraid of you." She looks at him, startled. He does not elaborate. He does not need to. The conversation ends shortly after, but something lingers, a quiet recognition, a sense that lines are blurring, not because either of them is careless, but because they are human. From that night on, she notices the changes. He starts asking how her day was, not out of obligation, out of curiosity. He tells her when a meeting goes badly, when a decision weighs on him. Small admissions, but meaningful ones. One evening, she returns home shaken after running into her former fiancé unexpectedly. He had smiled, thin and smug, congratulated her, then asked if she was happy now. She had not answered. When she tells her husband about it, her voice steady but her hands trembling, he listens without comment. When she finishes, he says only, "You did not deserve that." The simplicity of the statement hits harder than comfort ever could. Later that week, the lines blur further. At a formal dinner, someone makes a pointed joke about marriages of convenience. Laughter ripples around the table. She feels the old humiliation creep back, familiar and sharp. Before she can react, he places his hand over hers. Not for the audience, for her. "You are not a convenience," he says calmly. "You are my wife." The table falls silent. In the car afterward, she pulls her hand back gently. "You did not have to say that." "I know," he replies. The word hangs between them, heavy with implication. That night, alone in her room, She opens the folder she thought she would never look at again. The agreement, the clauses, the boundaries they set to protect themselves. They still exist, but she understands now what makes this dangerous. The contract was meant to define the marriage. It did not account for the quiet moments where two guarded people begin to see each other clearly. And once that happens, pretending becomes far more complicated than either of them ever planned. The truth does not come out gently. It arrives on a Tuesday morning, sharp and public, wrapped in a headline she sees before she even finishes her coffee. The article is already everywhere. Anonymous sources, insider confirmations, a confident tone that leaves no room for doubt. A marriage of convenience, a strategic arrangement, a contract signed to protect a merger. She reads the words again and again, her chest tightening with every line. Details she thought were private sit exposed on the screen. The timing, the sudden ceremony, even the language feels cruelly familiar. Someone wanted this known. By the time she arrives at the office, the atmosphere has changed. Conversations stop when she passes. Screens are turned away too late to pretend nothing is wrong. Sympathy mixes with curiosity in a way that makes her skin crawl. Her phone vibrates constantly. Messages from friends, from family, from people she barely knows, all asking the same question in different ways. Is it true? She does not answer any of them. At noon, she is summoned to the boardroom. He is already there when she arrives, standing near the window, phone pressed to his ear. He ends the call the moment he sees her, his expression unreadable. "They know," she says quietly. "Yes," he replies. "I am handling it." The word handling lands wrong. "You said this would be protected," she says. "You promised." "I promised to mitigate risk," he says carefully, "not to eliminate it." The room feels suddenly too small. "So this was always a possibility," she says, "being exposed, being reduced to a footnote in your corporate strategy." "That is not how I see you," he says. "But it is how the world sees me now," she replies, her voice tightening despite her effort to stay calm. The woman who married for convenience, the woman who sold dignity for protection. "That is not fair," he says. She laughs once without humor. Fair has nothing to do with it. She takes a step back. "I trusted you." He does not deny it. That hurts more than any argument could. By the end of the day, the story has grown. Analysts speculate. Commentators debate her motives. Her former fiancé gives a brief interview, thin smile in place, implying that he always knew she was calculating. The humiliation is familiar, but deeper this time. When she returns home, the house feels different, larger, emptier. Every room reminds her of the illusion she believed in, not the marriage, the safety. He finds her in the living room, standing by the window, arms wrapped around herself. "I will fix this," he says, publicly. "I will deny the narrative." "And confirm what?" she asks without turning. "That you married me out of kindness? Out of pity?" He is silent. That is answer enough. She turns to face him then, her eyes steady, her decision already made. "I cannot do this anymore," she says. "I will not stand beside you while people debate my worth." "You knew this was a risk," he says quietly. "Yes," she replies, "but I did not know it would feel like this." She walks past him, heading toward her room, her movements controlled but final. The contract allowed for an exit. The terms were clear, clean, professional. But what neither of them anticipated was how much damage the truth would do once it was spoken out loud. Behind her, he watches her go, realizing too late that this crisis is not about reputation or control. It is about losing the one thing he did not know he had already begun to care about. And this time, no agreement can stop her from walking away. The room is full. Cameras line the back wall. Investors, board members, and executives fill every seat. The atmosphere is tense, sharpened by rumors that have been circulating for days. Everyone knows this meeting matters. No one knows exactly why. She is not supposed to be here. She sits in the last row, unnoticed, having come only to collect what remains of her dignity and close the chapter cleanly. She told herself she would not watch. She told herself she was done caring. And yet, when he walks onto the stage, her attention locks onto him before she can stop it. He looks different today, not less composed, but more exposed. The calm authority is still there, but beneath it is something unmistakable, resolve. He begins by addressing the merger, numbers, timelines, risk assessments, the language of control. The board listens closely, nodding, following the familiar rhythm of his leadership. Then he stops. "There's something else I need to address," he says. The room stills. "In recent days, there has been speculation about my marriage," he continues. "About my motives, about the character of my wife." A low murmur spreads. She feels her breath catch. "This meeting is not the place for gossip," he says evenly, "but it is the place for truth." He turns slightly, his gaze sweeping the room, then settling on the cameras. "Yes," he says. "Our marriage began as a practical decision, a structured one, a collective intake of breath." Her chest tightens. She braces herself. "But what has been implied is wrong," he continues. "The narrative that she was a tool, or a shield, or a convenience is false." He pauses, just long enough for the weight of the words to sink in. "I did not choose her because I needed a wife," he says. "I needed nothing." The board members exchange glances. "I chose her," he says, voice firm, "because she stood in front of a room full of people on the worst day of her life and did not collapse. Because she did not trade her integrity for safety. Because she agreed to something difficult without ever asking to be less than herself." The room is silent now. "And today," he adds, "I am ending the merger." Gasps break out. A board member starts to speak, but he raises a hand. "I will not build a future on terms that require me to compromise the dignity of the woman I married," he says. "If that costs me leverage, I accept it." Her heart pounds. She cannot move. He looks directly toward the back of the room. "I said once that we would walk away cleanly," he says. "That was before I understood what walking away would cost." She stands without realizing she is doing it. "If she chooses to leave," he says, "that will be her right. But I will not hide behind contracts or silence again." The meeting dissolves into chaos, voices rising, questions fired from every direction. He steps away from the podium and walks toward her. When he reaches her, he stops. Not too close, not demanding. "I am not asking you to stay," he says quietly. "I am choosing you, whether you stay or not." Every eye is on them now. She searches his face, looking for strategy, for calculation. She finds none. For the first time since the altar, the choice is truly hers. And this time, it is not written into any agreement. She does not answer him right away. The room feels impossibly loud and impossibly quiet at the same time. People are watching, waiting for a reaction, for drama, for a headline-worthy ending. She feels the familiar urge to disappear, to protect herself by stepping back into silence. But she has done that before, and she remembers where it led her. She takes a breath and meets his eyes, not as his wife on paper, not as a solution, just as herself. "Come with me," she says softly. He follows without hesitation. They leave the room together, passing through a corridor where the noise fades and the air finally feels breathable again. Outside, the city stretches wide and ordinary, untouched by boardrooms and contracts and public judgment. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. "I did not plan to say any of that," he admits finally. "But once it started, I knew I could not stop." She nods. "You chose the hardest option." "I chose the honest one," he replies. She studies him, seeing him clearly now. Not the billionaire, not the man who rescued her at the altar, a man who finally stepped out from behind control. "When you said you were choosing me," she says, "I needed to know something." "Ask." "If there had been no merger," she continues, "no pressure, no cameras, would you still have stood beside me?" He does not answer immediately. When he does, his voice is steady. "Yes." The simplicity of it settles into her chest, warm and frightening all at once. She reaches into her bag and pulls out the folded document she has carried for days. The marriage agreement. The rules that once felt like safety. She holds it between them. "This protected me," she says, "at first." "I know. But I do not want protection anymore," she continues. "I want a choice." She tears the paper cleanly in half, then again, and again. He watches, not stopping her, not reaching for the pieces. When she is done, she looks up at him. "If we do this," she says, "we do it without clauses. without exits written in advance. He nods. Then we do it knowing there are risks. A small smile touches her lips. I have survived worse. Weeks later, there is no press announcement, no spectacle. They stand in a quiet courtyard with a handful of people who matter. Her parents, a few friends, no cameras, no expectations. She wears a simple dress, not white this time, something she chose because it felt like herself. When she walks toward him, there is no fear, only clarity. He takes her hands, and this time, there is nothing rehearsed about it. I am not here to save you, he says during his vows. I am here to walk with you. She smiles through tears she does not try to hide. And I am not here to be protected, she replies. I am here because I choose you. The kiss is unguarded, real. Later, as the evening settles and laughter fills the space between conversations, she catches sight of the old wedding ring resting on a table nearby, the one she never thought she would see again. She leaves it there. Some things belong to who we were. As they walk away together, hand in hand, she understands something at last. Being abandoned at the altar did not break her. It led her to a man who did not whisper promises in secret, but stood in the open and chose her when it mattered most. And this time, the beginning is not dramatic. It is honest. And that, she knows, is the kind of love that lasts.